Okay, now one of the other things that seems to be special about BARLEYmax is that it has high antioxidant levels. Are these antioxidants different in BARLEYmax, and how do the levels compare to foods like blueberries?
Okay, the antioxidants in BARLEYmax, there are the water-soluble antioxidants, but we're particularly interested in the fat-soluble antioxidants, the vitamin E type compounds, and BARLEYmax is a very good source. And these assist in preventing the oxidative damage to the polyunsaturated fats that are both in BARLEYmax and in the body. So it's high in what are called tocotrienols and also the tocols, the vitamin E compounds. They differ rather because blueberries don't contain these.
So there are different types of antioxidants present and in different quantities?
Yes.
So that's interesting to people because I think a lot of people don't think of antioxidants being present in any food other than fruits and vegetables.
Oh, that's quite incorrect. That's quite incorrect. The antioxidants that are present in what we would call oil seeds or grains are the fat-soluble ones, and they're there to protect these very important unsaturated fats from damage by oxygen. So, believe me, there are antioxidants in a whole range of plant foods other than fruits and vegetables.
Which is great to people to know. And I also think what's nice about BARLEYmax is that this is another hooray for eating some carbohydrates for those people who have been trying to cut out the carbohydrates. This is all good news for them, that there is a grain they can have that does them a lot of good.
Well, one of the big risks of the low-carbohydrate diets, and there's some very interesting work from Scotland, it is that the carbohydrate-rich foods, the plant foods that provide you with carbohydrates, especially whole grains, they provide you with fibre, they provide you with starch. You cut out the starch, and the work from Scotland shows quite clearly that you remove not necessarily the fibre, but you certainly lose the butyrate because you're cutting down on the carbohydrate that feeds the bacteria. And of course this, we know, is not a good thing.
Of course. Well, it's interesting you mentioned Scotland because, of course, barley and oats are two of, I'm proud to say, the healthiest foods in Scotland, but modern Scots just are not eating enough of them anymore.
They have one of the highest rates of heart disease in the world.
Exactly.
Like my own country, Wales, where we actually do eat barley, like you, we eat barley foods, rather more than is eaten in other countries. Interestingly, I think the highest consumption of barley is actually in Morocco or somewhere. I think.
How fascinating.
Yes.
Okay, I thought Scotland might have been up there in the old days, but I suspect it's gone out of favour. Now, the other thing about BARLEYmax is it has excellent prebiotic properties. I think that, first of all, can you explain the difference between prebiotics and probiotics?
Probiotics are bacteria, usually the sort of bacteria that you find in yoghurt. So probiotic bacteria are bacteria that are good for you. Now, a prebiotic is one that stimulates those bacteria. BARLEYmax does contain oligosaccharides, which does that job very nicely. But our view of pre and probiotics is rather different. And it's one that is emerging as a growing area of interest because the probiotic bacteria that people think of generally are very important in breastfed and young children. They're less important in adults. The probiotic bacteria for us are the ones that consume the dietary fibre and the dietary resistant starch. So BARLEYmax, we know, encourages the growth of those bacteria.
So we're encouraging the growth of bacteria already present in our bowel currently?
Absolutely. And in fact, it's very interesting. We have work in another flagship, the preventative health flagship, showing that the growth of these bacteria is stimulated by resistant starch. And there are specific bacteria that are there already that seem to be encouraged by resistant starch.
So it's fascinating that resistant starch and the oligosaccharides that are present are stimulating the growth of the good bacteria and not the bad.
Yes, you already. Yeah. There is actually evidence from a very nice study done by colleagues from the Flinders Medical Centre and the Harvard Medical School, where they took children in India who suffered from watery diarrhoea, largely due to cholera, and taking a specific type of resistant starch, which is used as an ingredient. They fed these children with resistant starch in the rehydration solution. I should remind you that cholera and infectious watery diarrhoea kills over 2 million children a year. They halved the time to recovery. The loss of water was halved, the time to recovery was halved. This is an amazing thing. And in fact, there is a proposal up to investigate the further potential of this type of approach in reducing the complications of diarrhoea. So if your kids have diarrhoea, which is still common in Australia, the resistant starches could help with the recovery from that.
It's amazing. It's almost as if, you know, I've heard before it describe the bacteria in your bowel as almost another organ of the body.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
So
it's
there are more
a very
cells
synergistic relationship.
Yeah. It's a symbiotic relationship. It's you and them.
Yeah.
And what we're seeking to do is encourage those bacteria. There are more bacterial cells alive in a healthy human than there are cells in the host's body. And encouraging the good bacteria is part of our strategy.
So is there evidence, therefore, that either the numbers of the bacteria present in the colon or the different types of bacteria present are therefore altered with the Western diet? So if you're following a low fibre, you know, the wrong kind of fats, eating the wrong kind of foods, are the numbers of bacteria less, or are they just different types?
Well, the numbers are bound to be less because they've got less to eat. And we think that that's one of the reasons that you get conditions, inflammatory conditions, because they turn on the host. What we do know is that the numbers go up if you feed fibre and resistant starch, and we know that there are shifts, but we've never actually gone and done the experiment of taking people and putting them on to low fibre diets or unhealthy or Western-type diets. We know from studies in animals that the Western diet is really deleterious, and there are changes in the bacteria, but we've never done it with volunteers. We would find it rather difficult to do.
I think ethically we may not be allowed to do that. Okay. So can you therefore just summarise for us the scientific evidence around prebiotics?
Prebiotics, the prebiotics that are found in the food supply currently, the oligosaccharides will encourage the growth of lactic acid bacteria. That is of benefit in managing situations such as lactose intolerance, and it's certainly good for children. And the addition of oligosaccharides to infant formula seems to be of benefit. We haven't done any work on that ourselves, but we are familiar with it. In the case of adults, the consumption of resistant starch foods will certainly encourage the production, and we've published work on this, encourage the production of short-chain fatty acids, and that can only occur through the promotion of bacteria that we regard as healthy.
Can you explain to us the vital link there is between digestive health and immune function?
Yes, this is a really important and growing area, and we in CSIRO and also with other colleagues in the university system are moving actively into this space. I mentioned the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. What seems to happen is that if the barrier is broken down, this mucus layer that protects you is broken down, then the immune system becomes hyperactive. And that can lead not only to inflammatory conditions in the gut, and that link is being developed, but maybe also be associated with inflammatory conditions in the rest of the body.
Is the so-called leaky gut syndrome part of this story?
Yes, it is. The leaky gut idea is that the barrier is broken down and compounds get across that shouldn't. Because our gut is designed to digest food. And we do the digestion and we absorb the products. The bacteria digest the rest and we absorb the products. But some of these products, some of the food components are really not all that good for us. And the bacteria reaching the cells that line, the human cells that line the gut, especially in the large bowel, may not be a good idea.
So is there a link, therefore, between your gut health and the rise in things like autoimmune diseases and allergies, asthma, intolerances?
We don't know. We really do not know. But there are some very interesting studies in children that are fed infant formulae with the oligosaccharides in them, which stimulate the bacteria that are important to these babies. And they seem to have much less in the way of the range of sort of immune conditions and the severity of them. This is a very important developing area for research. It's promising, but not conclusive yet.
Well, we certainly have evidence, don't we, that breastfed compared to formula-fed babies do have different levels of the so-called good and bad bacteria in the bowel.
That has been very well documented.
Yeah. Okay, now healthy fats we mentioned before. Now that's an important dietary position. How does BARLEYmax measure up in this area? Very
well. Like all grains, it's moderate in fats. It has rather more than the standard grains because of the change in composition, but those fats are unsaturated, mono and poly largely, and so these are good for you. The polys are essential. The monos are beneficial from the point of view of not raising cholesterol.
And of course, to absorb vitamin E and the other fat-soluble antioxidants that you measured, you need to have some fat present.
Absolutely. You can't transport the fat-soluble vitamins without fat. In fact, it's not really generally appreciated, I won't say understood, how important the role of fat as a transport vehicle is. It's not just there for you to get energy or provide structure, it also transports these fat-soluble compounds.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people don't understand that
No.
They need to have some fats present in their diet in order to get the best nutrition that they
Absolutely.
have.
And there are studies, as you know, with the stanols, which show that they really are optimal when transported as fat, or with fat, sorry.